Hello, hope you're doing well, and welcome to my SMITE 2 Hades guide. Hades, Lord of the Underworld, rises from his shadowy throne to drag enemies into the depths of despair with terrifying control and punishing magical damage. With his blight-inflicting abilities and soul-consuming power, Hades can dominate a team fight with devastating AoE burst and sustain. Hades is a ranged magical damage dealer who excels at lockdown, teamfight control, and burst healing. His passive, Blight, weakens enemies and empowers all of his abilities with bonus effects, creating a flow of gameplay where spreading and consuming Blight is key to success. Whether you're silencing enemies into fear, detonating their souls for massive area damage, or dragging them into the vortex of Pillar of Agony, Hades rewards players who position smartly and strike decisively. And in this video, I will teach you absolutely everything you need to know to master Hades and unleash the inevitable pull of the underworld upon your enemies. Don't forget to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss future SMITE 2 guides, as I'll be covering all of the characters in SMITE 2. Also check out my Discord server if you have any questions or want to join a friendly, toxic-free SMITE community. Now let's dive into Hades' abilities. Hades' entire kit revolves around his Blight passive, which applies a debuff to enemies through both his basic attacks and abilities. Blighted enemies have reduced strength and intelligence, but more importantly, every one of Hades' abilities gains bonus effects when cast on them. Mastering this interaction is key to maximizing his damage, lockdown, and healing potential. Your basic attacks and abilities will apply Blight, a debuff that weakens enemies by lowering their strength and intelligence, and when you use an ability on a blighted enemy, this ability gains a unique enhanced effect. The goal with Hades is simple: Blight first, then detonate. Hades' first ability is Death from Below. Hades dives through the ground and emerges in an eruption of dark energy, dealing damage in an area. This ability is your main movement and engage tool. When enemies are blighted, Death from Below also slows them, making it perfect for setting up follow-up abilities or chasing down fleeing targets. His second ability is Shroud of Darkness. This is Hades' primary lockdown tool. It silences enemies hit in a cone in front of him, and when used on blighted targets, it also fears them, forcing them to run away from Hades. This can interrupt channels, prevent escapes, or peel for yourself in clutch moments. It's fast, punishing, and synergizes beautifully with his other abilities. Hades' third ability, Devour Souls, is his most important ability and also his main form of wave clear, so you'll want to level this first. Hades drains the souls of nearby enemies, dealing massive AoE damage. If enemies are blighted, they detonate, damaging other nearby enemies and healing Hades and allies based on the number of detonations. This is the core of Hades' sustain and wave clear. In fights, a well-timed Devour Souls can swing the tide by chunking health bars and topping off his own. And finally, we have arrived at Hades' ultimate, Pillar of Agony. Hades channels a vortex of dark energy, pulling enemies towards him while dealing continuous damage. While channeling, Hades becomes CC immune, gains increased protections, and can cast one additional basic ability during the ultimate. If you cast Death from Below, his first ability, Hades will dash mid-ultimate, relocating to a new position while continuing to channel Pillar of Agony at a new location. If you cast the second ability, Shroud of Darkness, you'll silence all enemies in a wide semicircle inside your vortex. And finally, if you cast Devour Souls, his third ability, this ability will hit the entire radius of your ultimate, detonating all blighted enemies and triggering massive AoE damage and healing output. This makes Pillar of Agony one of the most devastating ultimates in the game when used properly, with the ability to reposition, silence to stop people from getting away, or detonating enemies to increase your damage and healing output mid-channel. Hades has the tools to dominate any teamfight. And now that you understand how his kit works and why Blight synergy is so important, let's dive into his ability combos to help you execute like a true Lord of the Underworld. Hades thrives in the chaos of teamfights, and his combos are designed to lock down targets, dish out AoE burst, and sustain through madness. While his combos aren't overly complex, their effectiveness lies in properly layering Blight and choosing the right moment to strike. Weaving auto attacks between abilities is crucial, not only to maximize damage but also to help maintain pressure between cooldowns. That said, Hades' toolkit is highly situational, and your combos may change depending on positioning, target priority, or if you're diving or peeling. These two examples will serve as foundations you can adapt depending on the fight. For your basic combos, start with Death from Below to leap into range and apply Blight. Immediately follow up with an auto attack, then Shroud of Darkness to silence and fear if blighted. Auto attack again and finish with Devour Souls for the big detonation and healing burst. Follow up with auto attacks to finish off the kill. This is your go-to combo for lane trades, picks, and small skirmishes. It's some massive burst damage while also providing crowd control and sustain. If timed right, enemies will be silenced, feared, and detonated before they can even react. And finally, your team fight combo. This combo follows the exact same opener, start with death from below into an auto attack, second ability, auto attack, third ability, but after the burst, follow up with Pillar of Agony to lock down anyone who survived the initial rotation. Depending on the situation, you can enhance your ultimate with a follow-up ability cast. Recast one to reposition with another dash and continue pulling enemies if they happen to get away. With your second ability, you can silence and panic the enemy team inside the vortex and stop them from casting any abilities. And finally, use your 3 to detonate blighted targets across the entire radius and heal yourself and nearby allies, as well as introduce an entirely new form of burst damage into your ultimate. Usually, if they have no escape, you'll want to go for this option. This combo is truly devastating in group fights or when diving into the backline, and because you're CC immune and tankier during your ultimate, it lets you push deeper and sustain through heavy retaliation. Mastering these combos and choosing the right ult interaction is what separates decent Hades players from terrifying ones. And now that you know how to execute your core chains, let's go over which roles Hades is best suited for on the battleground. Hades shines brightest in the mid lane. His powerful AoE damage, wave clear, and crowd control make him a dominant presence during the early game and mid game. With Blight reducing enemy strength and intelligence, he can soften up even the hardest hitting enemies before finishing them off with a burst combo. His zoning potential with Shroud of Darkness and Devour Souls combined with his ability to rotate quickly with Death from Below make him a menace during team fights and gank assists. This is his most natural and effective role. Hades is a strong pick for solo lane thanks to his sustain, presence, and tankiness. Devour Souls gives him an incredible lane staying power, while his crowd control allows him to win trades and lock down enemy warriors or bruisers. He scales into a strong teamfight initiator or off tank depending on how you choose to build him. While he doesn't have the same dueling power as some traditional solo laners, his utility more than makes up for it, especially in group teamfights. Hades actually makes a surprisingly strong off-meta support, especially if your team lacks early pressure or AoE control. His blight-based crowd control, team healing, and area denial make him very effective in chaotic fights. He can peel with Silence or Fear, sustain his allies with Devour Souls, and use Pillar of Agony to force enemy carries off objectives or out of a position. While he lacks traditional support tools like hard stuns or shields, his disruptive presence and sustain utility can absolutely work in coordinated teams, especially more aggressive support styles. Over in the jungle, Hades can be a surprise pick that works decently well with the right coordination. He has fast jungle clear thanks to Devour Souls and Blight detonations, and he can engage ganks with Death from Below followed by his crowd control chain. However, he lacks mobility compared to more traditional junglers and can struggle if he falls behind early. Still, in the right hands, his CC chain can be devastating during mid-gank skirmishes. And finally, Hades is not suited for ADC role in any capacity. His abilities are short range, his damage comes from burst rather than consistent poke, and he lacks the range auto attack and DPS needed to compete with traditional ADCs. Stick to lanes where his close quarter magic can thrive. That does wrap up where Hades fits best on the battleground, and he is very versatile. But always do remember that these are just suggestions, and if you can make him work well in certain roles with certain builds and playstyles, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's up to you to experiment and find what works best for you. And now let's talk about the builds that will help you truly embody the Lord of the Underworld. I can't give you an exact build for Hades as items in SMITE 2 often go through changes and fall in and out of the meta, but I can tell you which stats to focus on and suggest some core items. Hades has a flexible identity. He can be played as a full damage burst mage, a bruiser frontline menace, or even a pure tank utility support depending on his role. His scaling with intelligence combined with blight-based ability interactions make him extremely effective in ability-focused builds. At the same time, his AoE lockdown and sustain allow him to function well as a durable disruptor with the right itemization. Let's take a look at a few build paths you might explore. If you're playing Hades as an ability damage mage, your primary goal is high intelligence, cooldown reduction, and penetration. This setup allows you to spam your abilities more often, blow up blighted enemies, and capitalize on your teamfight presence. For intelligence, strong options include Book of Thoth, Bancroft's Talon, and Rod of Tahuti. These will ensure your Devour Souls and Pillar of Agony hit like trucks. To keep your combos flowing, Chronos Pendant, Spear of Desolation, and Gem of Focus are great options for cooldown reduction. And for penetration, Obsidian Shard and Totem of Death are the most reliable picks, especially after recent item changes that reduce pen stats across the board. For a bruiser style build in solo lane, you'll want to focus on hybrid items, some cooldown reduction and high protection. Hybrid picks like Gladiator Shield, Phoenix Shield, and Shifter Shield give you both durability and offensive pressure. Cooldown items like Pridwin, Screeching Gargoyle, and Phoenix Shield allow you to rotate through your full kit in longer fights. And if you're taking a lot of heat or need a front line for your team, round out your build with defensive powerhouses like Hide of the Nemean Lion, Prophetic Cloak, and Mantle of Discord. In the support role, Hades leans into full tank and utility. You'll want heavy protections, cooldown reduction, and team utility. For tank stance, look for items like Prophetic Cloak, Gauntlet of Thieves, and Hide of the Nemean Lion. All great for soaking damage. For cooldown, Pridwin, Mantle of Discord, and Prophetic Cloak are once again strong picks. And for team utility, items like Stampede, Talisman of Purification, and Amanita's Charm offer powerful auras, debuff removal, and peeling options that can turn the tide of any team fight. Now remember, these items are just suggestions as they depend on variables such as your situation, team composition, and enemy team comp. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, items are buffed and nerfed, falling in and out of the meta. That being said, those stats themselves are consistent, so it doesn't really matter which item you buy as long as you focus on the stats and traits your character requires. But if you do want completed builds, feel free to join the Discord server where I or other community members can help you with your build or any other questions you may have. And as I mentioned, if you want some non-toxic friends to play Smite with, our Discord server is the perfect place for you. Now that you know what Hades' abilities do, how to string them together, where to play him, and how to build him, I'm going to leave you off with some tips and tricks so you can dominate your next match as Hades. Starting with tip number 1, always apply Blight before casting your abilities. Hades' entire kit revolves around his Blight passive, and every ability gains a bonus effect when casting on blighted enemies. If you're not spreading Blight first, you're missing out on slows, fears, detonations, and protection shredding. A common mistake is casting Devour Souls or Shroud of Darkness too early. Make sure you lead with either a basic attack or Death from Below to apply Blight before comboing your other abilities. Up next, weave auto attacks between abilities. Hades is ability focused, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't ignore your basic attacks. Auto attacks not only help spread Blight, but they also fill gaps between your cooldowns and keep pressure on your opponent. Try to weave in a basic attack each cast. Ability auto attack, especially when waiting for Devour Souls to come off cooldown. When building damage or penetration, these auto attacks hit even harder. Tip number 3 is to use your ult reactively, not just for damage. Pillar of Agony is one of the most terrifying ultimates in the game, but it's not just for raw damage, it's also a crowd control immunity, defensive cooldown, and repositioning tool. Whether you're using it to escape, dive, or peel, always remember you can cast one ability during it. You can dash to a new location, silence enemies inside your vortex, or detonate them with Devour Souls for full AoE burst and healing. Choose the right version for the situation and your ultimate becomes way more than just a flashy finisher. And finally, tip number 4 is Devour Souls is your most reliable sustain tool. Devour Souls is the engine behind Hades' incredible survivability. In solo or support, this ability lets you stay in fights for much longer than you should be able to, as long as you're detonating blighted targets. Use it during minion waves, jungle camps, or pack team fights to instantly heal a large clump of health, and it can also help allies nearby, so try to group when casting it during a team fight for even more impact. And that's it, you've reached the end of the Hades guide. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out my other Smite 2 guides and subscribe for more content. If you have any questions, join my Discord server for tips and friendly community of Smite players. And finally, follow me on Twitch if you want to watch me play Smite live or ask any questions directly. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.